Councilmember Bingle, or Cathcart, sorry, we're ready to go here in Chambers.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Okay, we will call this meeting to order, the March 7th Public Safety Committee meeting. I'm Michael Cathcart, the Chair of Public Safety, and we will start with our minutes. Can I get a motion to approve our February 7 minutes?
So moved to approve the minutes. I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Let's see, there are some reports and updates in the packet for those watching. So be sure to check those out, and you can find that online at the city's website. We will get into our discussion items here. So our first up is an update from the fire department from Chief Schaefer. Chief Schaefer, are you ready to go? I'm actually not seeing Chief Schaefer. So if that's the case, we will put a hold on that until he joins us. And why don't we skip then to number 2, and we'll turn it over to Chief Meidel for an update from SPD.
Thank you, Councilmember Cathcart. So I was asked just to review some of the data that we covered several weeks ago in a press conference about crime trends we have seen in the city of Spokane, specifically as they relate to what we noted after police reforms. I can either verbally review that, or I do have a PowerPoint, whichever would be quickest, easiest, and most convenient if you have a preference.
If it's a quick slideshow, I think that'd be great. Just have the visual.
Okay, perfect. Let me go to share screen. And can everyone see this? Okay, I'm seeing heads nodding. Okay, so while I was out last week, out of the office last week, we updated this to continue the showing the trends through February 26th of this year as well. So when we're looking at the crime data that we noticed is a 3-year trend in the vast majority of categories, 3-year trend, a decrease in every category. Now, when you're looking at the screen, the middle column that says 725 to 1231, 725 is when those reforms actually became laws. So those bills then became laws. And you're looking at the first column that shows all property crime, shows a downward trend. Those the green numbers show a downward trend through the first portion of the year up until July 25th. And then July 25th, once those bills became law, then you'll note that there was an upward trend. And again, all property crime. However, larceny was a little bit of an anomaly, but when you look at the trend for the first portion of 2022 versus where we were at in 2021 as well, so from January 1st to February 26th of this year, that third column on the right is where we were at for this exact same time period last year. We're looking at vehicle theft. And again, if you can see my cursor, you'll notice since 2017, when we really started focusing on our vehicle thefts, you'll notice that nice downward trend. We went from being something like 4th as a metro area in the nation to mid-60s. So we really did our officers and follow-up crime analysts identified who's stealing our vehicles, did a great job. So there's a nice downward trend that you'll note from 2017. And then about the middle of 2021, again, when those reforms became law, you'll start to see that spike. One of the things that you'll note as well is that right now, year to date, our vehicle thefts are up 82% at this point in time compared to the same time last year. And they're up 40% compared to the 3-year average. WASPIC noted at the end of last year, vehicle thefts across the state were up over 50%, and I believe that number has increased. So again, the crime analysis noted at the bottom there, February 2022 is already the highest February stats for vehicle theft that we have since we transitioned to NIBRS, which is the National Incident-Based Reporting System. That basically means police reports or reports of crime since we transitioned. Burglary, again, you'll notice that we saw when you're going to about the middle of 2021 and then July when those reforms kicked in, you'll notice that spike there as well. Larceny as well, a nice downward trend. When you're looking at 2021 and you notice an almost 21% decrease compared to the 3-year average, that's again because of the progress we've made over the last 5 years since 2017. But obviously, right here, around the middle of 2021, you're seeing that spike again as well. And then vehicle prowlings, when you compare 2021 to the 3-year average, you'll also see that overall we were down for the year. However, we started to see that spike again as well. And looking at these bars, and I'm happy to forward this to everyone so they can kind of digest. I'm trying to go through it fairly quickly. When you're looking at this data here, you'll notice the darker bar each month is 2020. The light blue bar is 2021, and then the orange bar is 2022. And you'll see that we had, when we're looking at citywide totals on the left, this is downtown on the right, citywide on the left, you'll see that we started to see an increase again around July, August. And then if you're looking at where we're at now, citywide totals, you're seeing compared to the prior years where we're at as well. So that is a uber quick Reader's Digest version. I'm happy to say, though, that several bills did pass that we strongly believe are going to give us tools back that we need to help keep our communities safe. So some of those had an emergency clause in them, so they became effective last week. There is one more working its way through the governor for signature, hopefully this week as well. But we do anticipate in getting many of those tools back that we had, although not all of them.
I see Councilwoman Kinnear has her hand up.
I do. Thank you. I'm going to take it down. Okay. So, Chief, we know that crime across the country has spiked in the last 2 years. Do you have a link or any kind of place that you can point us to that we can compare our crime rate with nationwide? Because it's up everywhere. So we can point to Olympia and say, when reforms took place, that was the cause of this. But there are other things in play, and not just reforms, but other things in play that contribute to crime. And so I think we have to look at a bigger picture. And I wonder if you could send us that information so that we can compare nationwide with Washington and Spokane.
I think, I can ask crime analysis too. I think they'll have to go into DOJ, and there are nuances with different states having different crimes. For example, in Idaho, if you break into a vehicle, it's not a misdemeanor, it's a felony. It's called a vehicle burglary, and it's a felony here. They're considered gross misdemeanors. So there are nuances in different states just based on how they've classified certain crime categories. And your point is well taken. I've also seen that the crime that has increased across the country the last couple of years. I would say Spokane PD's done a pretty good job. When you look at that 3-year trend line, though, that for the prior 3 years, that trend line was consistently going down. You always have those ebbs and flows, but the trend line was showing that decrease until we got to the end of July of last year. Again, the caveat to all of that is we did have several different bills that were signed by the governor, so we hope that's going to help mitigate some of the increases we're seeing as well. But of course, time will tell. So I will work with crime analysis to see if we can get you that data as well. And you're looking national data compared to City of Spokane data?
I really would like to see that, because I know I've been reading studies about this. And I would also say anecdotally that neighborhoods have said speeding is up in their neighborhoods. So people driving erratically, driving while distracted, driving under the influence, or so it seems, and a lot of speed involved and more car accidents. And there was just a report on that as well. And that's not connected to anything that's happening in Olympia. That's connected to people behaving badly, essentially, because there's not as many people on the road to get in their way. So I want to take in all the information and not things in isolation. Thank you.
Okay. Council President.
Chief, a couple of questions. First of all, congratulations on all the decreases you've had over the last 3 years. It's been remarkable. Secondly, I'm trying to recall correctly, but I thought you had a slide at your press conference on shootings, and those look like they precipitously dropped after the end of July of last year for a while through September.
So the PowerPoint I showed you now is the updated one that was put together last week. If you have a moment, I can either pull that
Well,
slide up.
I don't need to see the slide, but I just wanted to, isn't that true, though, that the shootings went down for the 3 months after end of July, pretty precipitously?
I'd want to go back and look at it again.
All right.
But I totally believe in what you're saying, if that was what was on the slide. Information overload with all the information that I'm getting, but that is feasible. Okay, I just pulled it up. Give me 1 second here. This is an important question. There we go. I don't think you all can see my screen anymore.
No.
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're not seeing it now.
Can you just confirm from looking at your screen that they went down at end of July precipitously?
So actually, we noticed it would have been in October. And again, when you're looking at it, we all know this, right? Crime does this. It spikes and it plummets and spikes and plummets. So when you're looking at the decrease in October of 2021, it's still, it dips below the trend line, but then it shoots back up the next month as well. But there was that dip. March saw a more significant dip, March of 2021. And again, I'm happy to send this to everyone if they'd like a copy of that.
That'd be great. My recollection was end of July, it went down pretty steeply until October and then started going up. But
okay, I will send that to the council.
And secondly, my recollection of last summer is that because of a lot of questions that our department raised and statewide law enforcement raised, that police felt like they had to pull back from some of their responses until the legislature clarified things. But now, I think all the bills that have gone through have pretty much answered all those questions. So do you feel like you can go back to the kind of robust response that you had before you felt like you had to pull back?
Yeah, just to add a little bit of, I guess, to qualify that, the biggest confusion across the state was there were, in essence, 4 prongs that allowed officers to respond and, if necessary, use reasonable force in the performance of their duties. And one of those 4 prongs did not include a mental health detention. So it's obviously typically not illegal just to have a mental health crisis. It's if they're going to be causing a crime related to that mental health crisis, it's still a crime. But many of the calls we respond to, the person yelling at a stop sign, swinging a machete or a knife at somebody that none of us can see, that's invisible. Well, that may be unnerving unless they're threatening someone, not a crime. So one of the prongs in the bills as well was that officers need to consider leaving the area if there is no crime. And again, the AG's office came out with a report, and they had said that, yeah, we do agree with law enforcement. We don't believe, and again, mind you, they threw in caveats that this should be clarified by the state legislators, but they did state that they believe law enforcement could reasonably be interpreting it correctly, that if there is a mental health individual and they are not committing a crime, officers can't use force. So when we're talking about those calls that we weren't responding to as much last year, and quite frankly, much, if not most of the state, many of those revolved around the mental health crisis calls, suicidal calls, things of that nature. If it was a crime in progress, though, our responses to the initial call did not change last year.
Great. But that's been clarified by the bills that have been passed so far.
That is correct.
Right.
Yes.
And the piece about whether or not you could use force on someone who was obstructing by refusing to be detained or an investigator, that's been clarified now too.
That has been clarified.
Okay. So do you have any, now that these bills have been clarified, do you have any outstanding concerns about police reform that you think might interfere with being able to do your job?
There is one more. There's one that is very concerning. So when we look at a lot of so here the basic version, when police officers respond to a crime in progress, typically most people don't want to be arrested if they have committed a crime, so they tend to flee. Not all of them, but there are a significant portion that tend to flee if they know that law enforcement is responding. Same thing with vehicle thefts. One of probably my biggest concerns for the state is that when the legislators in this latest session looked at vehicle pursuits, they limited vehicle pursuits to certain violent crimes defined in the RCW. And I don't have that RCW right in front of me, but there are also still many other felonies that law enforcement officers are not authorized to pursue for across the state. Stolen vehicles, if there's a stolen vehicle, an officer cannot pursue. Third-degree assaults, many of these other felonies, officers still cannot pursue. Now, when that message got out across the state, again, we've heard it from sheriffs and police chiefs across the state. They said that the number, and even prosecutors, the number of people fleeing traffic stops skyrocketed as well, quite frankly. So some of that will be pulled back, but there's still a lot of concern about the inability for law enforcement to pursue for many of these other crimes. So if it's a stolen vehicle and that person doesn't stop, officers are not allowed to pursue, just using that as an example. The other caveat to that, however, though, is we did not authorize our department to pursue for stolen vehicles even prior to the reform legislation last year. I think the difference is that wasn't widely known, though. I think with all these reforms from last year, I think that became widely known amongst folks, and they took advantage of that.
And what was the reason that even before the reforms, you didn't permit your officers to pursue stolen vehicles?
I think to be honest, probably a lot of the same concerns that came up through the state legislators. They're very dangerous, and when you have a 5,000-pound vehicle fleeing at a high rate of speed in a dense urban environment like the city of Spokane, well, now you have a police car trying to catch that vehicle and stop that vehicle. You have a second 5,000-pound vehicle, and then typically a backup officer. So now you have 3 5,000-pound missiles that are driving down the street in a stolen vehicle. And our view was this is a property crime. We do not want to jeopardize the community by allowing, in essence, 3 or more 5,000-pound vehicles to flee at a high rate of speed. It just, unfortunately, now that information spread like wildfire across the state last year.
Great. All right, that's all that I have. I really appreciate it, and I'm really glad that we've gotten some of the clarifications in, and I've had a chance to talk to your training lieutenant. He seems really on it, so I'm really excited. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Wilkerson.
Chief Milo, good to see you. I had just commented. I had not seen you in a while, so thanks for being with us. Hey, I'm concerned that there is a narrative in our community that certain electeds and community members are contributing to the increase in crime in our community. I'm wondering if you are in alignment with that narrative.
And I'm assuming you're referring to a recent video that was released by my counterpart.
Yes.
Yeah, that video is something that he put together on his own initiative. We haven't talked about those issues. We don't talk about those issues. He and I have a professional relationship, so that's not something we talk about very often. I think since you've asked the question, I think to be totally transparent, I think there is law enforcement. I think we agree we're not going to wrest our way out of most of these problems, and I think the challenge for law enforcement, and not necessarily a challenge, but I think the different lenses is that law enforcement, we deal with victims every day. That's our job. That's what the community pays us for, is to go investigate crimes. So we see these victims over and over every single day. We see the damage done, the lives ruined, the lives lost from a whole myriad of crimes. And we deal with many of the same people over and over again, these repeat offenders. So I think when we're talking about what law enforcement can or can't do, it is established obviously by the legislators, and specifically I'm speaking to like Olympia with the tools they give or the tools that they take away from us. So I think there is two different perspectives. We want to make this offender whole and get them what they need, and then law enforcement's perspective, which is this person has victimized a lot of folks, and we as law enforcement have gotten to the point where we feel like we would like you to stop your criminal behavior, And if you don't or you haven't, and your criminal history shows you haven't, we now want to protect the community from you. And I think that's the lenses. And I think on the city of Spokane City Council, I think on the state legislators, you have that whole spectrum as well. Those who want to, again, from a law enforcement perspective, keep trying to help these folks who either have addiction issues, anger management issues, mental health issues. And then you have the typically, not exclusively, but typically the law enforcement perspective of you've done enough damage. And I know there's the messaging out there that, jail or prison doesn't make people better. It can actually make behavior worse. Our perspective is we're no longer trying to change your behavior. We're trying to protect the community from you because you have shown by your history you're going to continue to victimize the community. So I think that's where you see this full spectrum. And again, it comes down to philosophy. Our philosophy is based on our lived experiences, and other city and state legislators are based on their lived experiences as well.
Thank you. I'll just say that as someone who was identified, if I had heard that from my own police chief and you had reached out to us electeds and community members, it would have been a different response. But it was very threatening, and some of us were concerned really about our safety. So if that is not the position of the Spokane Police Department, it really would be helpful if you all would say so.
Okay, looks like there's, Council President Beggs.
You muted, Brian.
You're muted.
Thanks. Just briefly, Chief, I just need to respond to one thing, and that is to the degree that there's a narrative that City Council cares more about people who have committed crimes than crime victims. I just want to speak up against that. I've been a lawyer over 30 years. Almost all my clients are victims of illegal behavior and criminal behavior, and I just go to bat for them every day as a lawyer and as a council member. The only question is, how do we reduce crime? What's the most effective way? And we can all differ on that, but I just don't want to let that go unsaid, that every council member I know of is deeply committed to anyone who's been a victim of crime and preventing crime and reducing the number of victims. So I think we have that in common. We might have different strategies on how to do that, which is fair, but the commitment to anybody who's been a victim of crime is strong on the council.
Yeah, and just to respond to that too, and I see Councilwoman Stratton had her hand raised, but yeah, there are so many different cogs involved in, and for the sake of discussion, since we're speaking specific to law enforcement, there's so many cogs involved in crime in the justice system. Who commits crime? Why do they commit crime? What happens when they commit crime? It's everything from, you have obviously on one extent the jail and prisons, and then you have mental health rehabilitation, drug treatment, job training, then you have education. These people finish high school, they go to college. You have job training, you have job availability. So there's so many different levers that need to be pulled in many of these cases, especially the more extreme cases, that it's usually takes a comprehensive approach, almost like a spoke wheel. You have to have those different levers that you can utilize to get this person whatever they need, while acknowledging, and I think the City Council will agree as well, while acknowledging what do we do with those people who don't want to change their behavior, and we are supportive of those who do want to change their behavior. We want to help you, we want to give you resources, but for those who don't, what do we do with those folks? And you don't have to tell me you don't want to. I can see it by the behavior of the repeat offending over and over again that, okay, you don't want to change. So I think we have to look at this as there's many levers, many prongs, legislators, law enforcement, schools, family, treatment. There are so many different layers to this that have to be looked at.
Thank you for that, Chief. I would like to have a conversation, I think, perhaps at our next committee meeting or a future committee meeting to talk about, how we can interject more accountability into the system. I mean, you see an individual like we saw just recently, 42 felony convictions, still out on the street, still committing crimes, and let out on their own recognizance. And I don't think that's keeping the community safe. I don't think that's, doing a lot of the things that we should be doing. And so I think we should have a conversation about that and figure out, is 42 times the number that we think is okay for people to commit crimes, or should that number be a little bit lower? And that doesn't even account for the hundreds of times this individual had been arrested on top of those convictions. So anyway, I think that's a really good conversation that we should have. I think that's really important for us to be talking about, and we can do that perhaps at our next committee meeting. Right now, we'll move on to our forfeiture fund update from
Hey, Michael, can I?
Major. Oh, I didn't see a hand. Yeah,
It's
go
Karen.
ahead. Go ahead, Councilman.
I was just going to recommend or that we think about, now that it feels like the state laws are going to be a little more in your favor, Chief. It would be great to have officers come back out to the neighborhood councils and explain that. I will just tell you, in my neighborhoods, I go to most of the meetings, and the constant discussion has been when there's an update, a SPD update from the NRO. It's usually our hands are tied. Don't call us. We can't arrest anybody. I had one officer say if the council was a little more to the right, maybe things would be different. So there were some really bizarre discussions around that. I would just recommend that as we move what I think is in a different direction, a better direction for SPD, that maybe we make sure for maybe March and April we have enough police officers coming to those neighborhood meetings to kind of help people understand the changes, and maybe they will start feeling a little more safe and a little more like they understand that neighborhoods love our police officers and they respect SPD. And I just felt bad that they were left so many times afraid. They didn't feel like they had anybody to call if they needed help. So as this changes a little bit in your favor, it'd be great to have some officers just hit those neighborhood councils and explain what's going on so they'll feel a little more confident.
Councilman Stratton, absolutely. I was taking notes while you're talking, but let me apologize if that an officer would say something like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've stressed is that we are non-political, and when you're in uniform or you're on duty, that's not the time to be discussing these things. So I apologize for that, but I will pass that message along as well.
Yeah, it'd be great just to move forward with another plan and a little more safety in mind of those people that have been feeling really nervous about it.
Corey, and just
Thanks.
to jump in on this, I know that we're behind schedule, but Chief,
We're
maybe
way over schedule, so if you could be really quick, Jonathan. that'd be
real brief. Maybe as when you go to our neighborhood councils, maybe if there was a plan that the police could say this is something that we see as a way forward for us to make our community safer, that would also be a great thing to share.
Okay. Well, I see Chief Schaefer is back on, so we'll jump over to him and get an update on fire before we come back to our policing discussion. Chief Schaefer?
Well, certainly. Thank you, Councilmember Cathcart. Certainly an important conversation. Appreciate the opportunity to address the council. Our only topic that we wanted to discuss this afternoon was the renewal of the EMS levy as an informational opportunity just to share with the council. The vote will be on April 26th, and we wanted to share just a few bullet points, which are facts regarding the EMS levy. About 87% of all the volume that the fire department responds to is or does have a nexus to emergency medical services and pre-hospital care. It is the number one priority of life safety that we do within our mission. It was recently renewed in 2016, and since then, we've responded to nearly 200,000 medical incidents. Many of those, if not all of those, resulted in a favorable outcome and certainly made an impression on our community members and their families. Most recently as well, in 2021, last year, 229 people suffered sudden cardiac arrest. We recently had this occur at Gonzaga on campus during an event, a 54-year-old gentleman. And Gonzaga being prepared for such an emergency was the first link in the survival chain, and that was hands-only CPR, and they were actually prepared and trained to use an AED. So when we arrived, we were able to resuscitate the victim. Wonderful man. He was prepped to watch his daughter in her first orchestra performance. at Gonzaga on the violin, and unfortunately he didn't get the chance to do that time, but he will in April. So we're pretty proud of our partners in the community, and the EMS levy allows us to perform at and have results like what you see in the bullet of 54% survival. Again, the EMS levy is 50 cents per 1,000, and it has been that way since the early 90s. The dollars that are attributed to EMS span predominantly on the labor side for talent, for people, for our membership that makes up the Spokane Fire Department, and the remaining percentages below are for vehicles, equipment, and administration, as well as those disposable supplies that we use on a daily basis. And I'll just finish up. We expect the property tax assessment will bring in about $13 million for the fire department. That will cover all of the bullet points listed below in the slide. And I am certainly able to answer any questions. I know one question that I have received already is if I'm still planning to go out on the informational campaign, and yes, I'm waiting on 2 additional dates, and then I'll have that schedule published to everybody's staffers. So you can expect me or Mike Lopez or one of our chief staff at those community meetings able to share the same information in a bit more detail. And I intend on sending this flyer to everyone on council so they've got it. Thanks, Kath. Go ahead.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I'm looking to see if I see any hands. I am not seeing any. Okay. Well, Chief, thank you very much for the presentation there. Very much appreciated. And let's see. We'll move along to the forfeiture fund update with Major McNabb and Matt Folsom.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm going to share my screen, and let's see. Matt Folsom is going to get us started on this presentation, and then I'm going to follow up at the end.
Kind of looks like we're running a little behind, so I'm going to speed through some of this. Please stop me if you have any questions. We can advance to the next one. Major McNabb, can you advance that?
Working on it. There we go.
So the legislative intent is stated in RCW 6950-505 for why do we have asset seizure and forfeiture in the first place? Because governmental agencies incur immense expenses in the investigation, prosecution, adjudication of these drug-related offenders. And forfeiture provides a significant deterrent by removing the profit incentive and provides a revenue source that will partially defray the large costs. So the agency incurs immense expenses, but the purpose is to deter criminal activity and remove the profit incentive. Next. We have a lot of due process in asset seizure and forfeiture. There's a determination of probable cause by the officer or a judge that's reviewed by either legal for the police department or a supervisor. Then there's notice to any owner or anyone who could potentially have a claim. They have an opportunity for a hearing that can be in Superior Court, District Court, or in front of the city's hearing examiner. At that hearing, it's law enforcement's burden of proof to prove that the property was used in the proscribed manner. There's also an appeal if they don't prevail at the hearing. And if the claimant prevails on any individual piece of property, then the police department and the agency is on the hook for the attorney's fees. So there are a lot of checks, balances, and due process. But we're here, to talk about forfeiture fund use. Forfeiture fund use is restricted by the statute the property was seized under. So in Washington, we have 2 primary statutes. That's a felony statute, RCW 10-105010. That's the property was used as an instrumentality in the commission of a felony. The use restriction is the funds need to be used exclusively for the expansion and improvement of law enforcement activity. It's very broad. Skipping down, it's very similar for the federal. Anytime there's a joint task force between, let's say, DEA and SPD, the DOJ has a robust equitable sharing guide. Their guide states that those funds shall be used by law enforcement agencies for law enforcement purposes only. So pretty similar to the felony and federal law enforcement purposes, law enforcement activity. If it's a drug-related offense, RCW 69-5505, and that's the majority of our forfeiture funds. And this is the most restrictive. The funds must be used exclusively for the expansion and improvement of controlled substances related law enforcement activity. There is not a lot of case law or precedent in interpreting that. We can move on to the next one. But there are two Attorney General opinions. So the first one in 1995 states that activities that relate to controlled substances, but incidentally further other law enforcement purposes. So yes, the funds must be used for the expansion and improvement of controlled substances related law enforcement activity, but just because there's an additional side benefit or it incidentally furthers some other law enforcement purpose doesn't make that whole use impermissible. And then the opinion in 2010, the Attorney General was expanding on that relate to definition, and they used the common understanding, a dictionary definition, and that relate to is essentially having a close connection or a significant relationship to enforcing controlled substance laws. So there's got to be that close connection. It's got to relate to, it's got to have a significant relationship, and that's our guide. I included, we can move on to the next one, this case. The federal statutes have been on the books a lot longer than the state statutes. So anytime there's a question and there isn't precedent in the state, the Washington courts traditionally look to see what's the federal precedent. So the federal precedent isn't binding on us, but we can learn from that and saying, if there's an open question, what do our courts do? They look to see how have the feds decided it. Which brings us to the
Can I interrupt just briefly? Just on that case, those cases were about enforcement of forfeiture, not about spending.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I didn't, in your materials, I had to read them last month. I didn't see anything in the AG's opinion or state law or legislative history that said that our state dollars were going to be constrained by the federal administrative law from the Department of Justice. There's nothing out, no language like that that says we have to follow the equitable principles for federal seizures. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So the DOJ's Guide to Equitable Sharing is not binding precedent for how we use our state forfeiture funds. Absolutely correct. We have the language of the statute. We have those two AG opinions. There's no case law. What I'm saying is when there's an open question and the courts have an opportunity to interpret that, what do? They look at the federal process and policy as a guide. And so I think we can use the DOJ Equitable Sharing Guide as a sounding board to see what is permissible, what's not permissible. But you're right, it's not binding. Can we go on to the next one?
Well, I just want to push back a little bit. Those cases were about when you can seize it as opposed to how you can spend it. So but we might just disagree. Sorry.
So in the DOJ guide, this is available online. If you just Google search US DOJ Guide to Equitable Sharing, you can see all the details about this. A few permissible uses outlined: operations, public safety facilities, equipment operations, contracts, travel, matching grants, community-based organizations. Some specific impermissible uses: personal benefit, political gain, supplanting law enforcement. And that supplanting law enforcement is in our statutes, our state statutes. lawsuit costs, any expenditure not managed or monitored, salaries. We move on, we can look at the community-based organizations as a specific example. The DOJ says a drug treatment facility, job skills, drug and crime prevention youth programs are all permissible. What they restrict, if it's a federal equitable sharing fund source, they cap it at $25,000. It requires law enforcement approval and monitoring subrecipients. And I think that's really important to remember, monitoring subrecipients, because even if it's under a state fund or a federal forfeiture fund, it doesn't meet our burden by just handing it over to an agency and not managing or monitoring it anymore. We need to watch how that agency spends it down the chain, down the waterfall, because we need to make sure it expands and improves controlled substance related law enforcement activity all the way to the end. And then finally, as we are looking on how to spend forfeiture funds, I'd like us to keep this at the front of our mind. Agencies may not commit to the spending of sharing funds for a certain purpose in advance. I started by talking about what's the legislative intent, and that is to deter criminal activity, remove the profit incentive, and if we start saying we're going to commit X amount of dollars to whatever the purpose is, all of a sudden that can supplant the motivation and the intent behind asset seizure and forfeiture, or at least it could appear to supplant that intent. And we don't want anyone involved in asset seizure or forfeiture to be thinking we have to bring in this amount of revenue because we've committed it in the future, rather than spending it as it comes in. I'm available for more questions, but handing it over to Major McNabb.
I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to cruise on. Council President, Matt and I kind of split up your questions, so I'm going to get to the balances now. So this is where we're at right now. Our federal balance is $155,361. Our state drug balance is just under $700,000. Non-drug is about $25,000, and sexual exploitation is around $10,000. What we were given out of those funds in the 2022 budget, hopefully you can see this is kind of small. Out of the federal fund, we got $11,500 for software, $4,000 for minor equipment, and then $25,000 for contract services, and that goes to Partners with Families and Children. So $40,000 is what we were taking out of the federal. Out of the state, we had $5,000 for legal services. That's for our chronic nuisance legal actions, and then $80,000 for confidential funds, $25,000 for an undercover vehicle, which, by the way, I don't know if you've seen the inflation on used cars, but that's nowhere near enough to buy a used car. So 110 out of the state fund total for a total of 150,000. Subtract all that, our federal balance is at 114,861, and the state balance is at 575,431. So this is what we would like. Out of the federal fund, we would like to replace some furniture over here at the Gardner building that was, when we got this building, I think an officer's wife had some used furniture at a bank building, and that's how we got our cubicles and desk and stuff, and it's all kind of falling apart on us. In addition, we are getting quite a few requests every year through risk management to replace people's desks at a tune of about $1,000 a piece for a stand-up adjustable desk with monitors and such, and we don't really have a budget source to pay for those things. Also in that furniture budget would be some cubicle walls to finish up our remodel project we did over here. And some minor equipment would be for a computer that reads vehicle data on fatal collisions, and then some about half of that would be for personal safety equipment for our special investigative unit. Out of the state fund, we would like an increase in confidential funds by $40,000. I think that got cut by $40,000 in 2019. I got to be honest, we are seeing a ton of fentanyl coming into our community, as well as methamphetamine. We are buying larger quantities of this drug to build our cases, and we are buying them more frequently. And last year, we ran out of confidential funds around October, and this year, if we keep going down the path we're on, we're probably going to run out even earlier this year. So I would ask that that budget be increased. Also, last year, at no fault of our own, we had 2 undercover vehicles totaled. One person ran a red light and T-boned one of our officers. Another officer was doing a blocking maneuver, and their car got rammed by the suspect and destroyed. So we'd like another $75,000 for used cars, in addition to the $25,000 you've already given us. That would give us maybe 3 cars with the price of used cars today. And then we would also
Major
like,
McNabb?
yeah.
Can I just ask you a quick question on the cars? So, is there like a standard that you're required to buy to? I mean, I just, a quick search online. I mean, there's, Hondas and Fusions and stuff like that for $10,000-$12,000 bucks. I mean, if they're supposed to be just undercover and not recognizable, it seems like there'd be a lot of options that are under that $25,000 mark. And so I'm just kind of curious if there's a standard that you have to buy to.
There's no standard, and that's a good question, Councilman. I'd say our standard, our internal standard, is one that's going to last for 2, 3, 4 years. Because, like I said before, we were only getting 1 car per year through our forfeiture funds, and we're talking around 21 cars in total that we're managing through this fund, and we want them to last a little bit longer. They are unmarked. They are, for the most part, not commissioned, but some of them do have hidden lights and radios installed, and so there's a little bit of upfitting where we wouldn't want to continually be replacing these things and costing more money in commissioning costs by replacing them more frequently. But you're right, that's a good question. No, there's no internal standard.
Thank you.
Major, I have a very quick follow-up. In terms of, once the undercover vehicle has kind of been made, people know it's undercover, so you can't use it anymore. What happens to that? Are you selling them and then trying to recoup those funds?
Normally, if it's worn out, Council President will sell it at the auction and get a little bit of money for it, and that goes into that vehicle replacement fund I think we tapped into a little bit last year. Or if it's a forfeiture car that we bought with forfeiture fund, it goes right back into the forfeiture account. Or we park it for a while. We do have a number of spares for when that happens.
How many spares are parked right now, would you say?
I'm just going to guess. I don't know offhand, but I think it's around 7 to 10, probably. So the last thing we would like is $60,000 for mobile device analysis software. Every single case we come across these days, every single case, whether it's a major crimes case, a special victims case, a drug case, all of these cases have some form of technological data mining that we have to do. And the cell phone data retrieval software is very expensive. It's cutting edge, but it is enormously helpful. And we would very much like to be able to get the cutting edge software to solve these crimes a little bit quicker, and that's around $60,000 for that. So,
Hey, Major.
yes.
On those vehicles, I know that the purchasing of the vehicles is a large expense, but even when you're purchasing brand new vehicles, there is some outfitting that has to be done to suit police needs. Is that the same when it comes to these used cars? Is there added expense in suiting them for what you need?
Yeah, there is. And so say the $25,000 for one car, right now they would have to find a car that costs around $20,000 out the door, depending on its use. But most of the time they're going to spend $3,000-$4,000 getting it outfitted with a radio and at least some maybe basic and hidden interior lighting for an emergency. So there is some hidden costs. Some cars I get lucky and they don't want anything in it at all. No radio, no anything. So they'll get lucky and it gets, but that's not the norm. That's the one-offs. So after all those expenditure asks, it takes the federal balance down to $28,000 and the state balance down to $400,000.
Major, the mobile device analysis software, is that something that is essentially to kind of break open the phone after you have kind of a warrant and all of that? Is that what that's used for?
That's correct. Once we have a warrant, once we have met the legal threshold to search a phone. They call it Celebrite. It gets into the phones, and I'd be speaking over my head to tell you exactly how it does it, but it does it somehow.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that is it for that presentation. I'm going to stop sharing and answer any questions anybody else might have.
Any additional questions for the Major or for Matt Folsom?
I've heard stories of in the asset forfeiture that there were times that people who had, cash seized, came back and said, hey, we understand why you seized it, but, we need to pay rent and those kinds of things. Are those the ways in which, the police, not just taking all of it, but being understanding? Does that happen in those situations?
I wouldn't say that it happens for those situations, but there are times when, and you know what, I'm going to let Matt answer this one because he does all the pre-hearing settlements, so I'm going to let him field this question.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, we do have the ability to return forfeiture funds. If we haven't met our burden, we release our interest and we don't seize it at all. And then we have the ability to negotiate each case on a case-by-case basis. As discovery goes in the case, we learn more about the claimants. We either strengthen our case or it gets weaker, and so we are able to settle those. Does that answer your question?
I think I'd more heard specific stories of the police, seizing assets, but then, as someone who had their assets seized came and said, hey, we understand why you did this, but, we need to make rent this month, otherwise we'll be out on the streets. And the police have been quite understanding in those situations and have voluntarily returned some of that money to ensure that families, weren't going without. That's what I was sort of getting.
That's rare, but it has happened. It's based on a case-by-case basis.
Councilman Wilkerson. You're muted, Betsy.
Thanks. Matt, what's a community-based organization look like that would could possibly be a recipient of these funds? And does the community know that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that's probably more suited for Major McNabb. Essentially, if the chief of police believes that it's substantially related to the improvement and expansion of controlled substance-related activity, then it would fit. I'm not sure if we have any in mind or if we're funding any.
And then the other big one in that is that we can't commit to future spending. So that makes it kind of hard.
Yeah, not future spending, but what programs are out there that could possibly qualify. So I'm not asking for the future, but are there any that are even in our community that would even be on the radar for these types of funds? So,
Can we bring back DARE?
Could we bring back DARE? That's a great question. I'm not an expert on DARE, and I'll look to some of my more senior members of the executive staff, maybe Major Olson or Chief Meidel, to speak to that.
Councilman Cathcart, yeah, well, there's more layers to that question than I probably would get into during public safety, but definitely happy to talk to you offline about that.
But in terms of Councilman Wilkerson's question, though, about groups, if anybody could brainstorm an answer to that and get back, because I too would be interested in knowing the answer to that as well. Council President?
Yeah, I was just going to say, last time Mr. Folsom and I think Captain Arliss were here, they confirmed that it could go to youth intervention programs, and especially the state dollars, because we don't have a limit on the 25. I think that $25,000 is going to family partners on the federal money, but I think youth of intervention of at-risk youth, avoidance of substance abuse issues, but we can't commit ahead of time. We can only just give money that we have in the account and say, hey, you can do good things with it.
Now, Matt, help me clear this up. If we did that, would we then have to have some mechanism in place to where we're monitoring how that's spent?
Yeah, we talked about that last time. I think that's one of the challenges, not unsurmountable, of course, but you've got to manage and monitor all the way down. You can't just say, here you go, DARE, and then wash our hands of it. How's DARE spending that money? Is it consistent with our requirements to expand and improve controlled substance related law enforcement activity?
And that's just like any other grant recipient at the city. So we're
Yep.
equipped to do, maybe not the police department, but our grants management people do that all the time.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? All right, if not, we'll have Major McNabb stay on standby for our fleet discussion, but first we're going to jump over to Carly Portwright to talk about our mobile speed feedback trailers. Carly?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate everyone having me today. I'll keep this really brief. I think it should be a quick conversation. You're probably all very well aware of our mobile speed feedback trailer program, which allows the neighborhood councils to select locations they would like those speed feedback trailers to be placed. We deploy them starting in May, and they run through about the first week in October. They are solar powered, and so we have to wait for the sun to be up in the sky long enough to power those, to have them out there. They've been in effect since 2011, and I'm not entirely sure of who was responsible. I do believe Neighborhood Services themselves was the one that was deploying the trailers previous to when Neighborhood Services and Code Enforcement were the same department. With that uncoupling a few years back, Streets was moving the trailers and doing the setup for us, but they've also been restricted in their ability to do that. Last year, we worked on sort of a compromise solution, which required Street radios to move the trailers every 2 weeks for us. And one of my staff members would go out on Fridays to collapse the trailer, get the data logger out, download all the data, which takes quite a bit of time to do, and then go back out that following Monday to where the location of the trailer had been moved and reset the trailer up. That was more efficient working for us just because some of the challenges we ran into with Streets and their capacity was limited based on their available resources. Sometimes those trailers wouldn't necessarily be ready to go right away on that Monday morning. And we heard from the neighborhood councils who were very frustrated that they weren't getting their full 2-week deployment. So that's a little bit of the background and history. What we're bringing forward today, and I do have Patrick Stryker here with me as well from COPS, is a proposal to have COPS take over the moving of the trailer piece of it. By partnering with them, they could disperse it to their volunteers within each one of their COP locations, which would mean they're probably only moving 1 to 2 trailers each. Be able to set those up. We're thinking we could get a full 2-week deployment. So rather than doing a Monday through Friday, we'd be able to do through a true Monday through Monday setup. So take it down on Monday, move it to its new location, and set it back up. Their proposal for doing this is pretty simple. They're asking for some funding to purchase trailer hitches to be able to do this at $650 each, times 3 cars, as well as an annual $200 gas stipend to be able to give that to the volunteers for moving. This will be a cost savings, actually. As you're probably aware, we do bill back our time within ONS that we spend on traffic calming. And right now, with the staff member that I had doing it last year, when I totaled up those hours as well as the mileage reimbursement we were doing for her to be driving her own car, that came to a total of about $4,500 annually. So at $2,150, this would be a steal, especially since that initial cost is only a one-time cost with those trailer hitches. Going forward, it would only be $200 a year with that gas stipend. So I think it's a really great opportunity to partner with COPS, be a little bit more efficient, have less driving all over the place as we talk about sustainability. I know the fleet conversation's next, so I think that ties in well. I think this is just, again, a really great opportunity to provide that value add to our neighborhood councils, give them 2 extra days, be more efficient on staff time and the environment from driving all around, and be able to partner with COPS, who are really excited to work with us on this project. That is all I have for you. Any questions? Councilmember Wilkerson.
Carly, thank you. Yep, Councilman Wilkerson. You're muted, Betsy.
That doesn't happen very often. I think it's a great idea, and it gets COPS more integrated into the community where they're at. I would encourage them to increase the gas allowance, though, in the times that we're in. I know you guys are frugal, but I'm also realistic.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Carly, I think this is great. I think it's a really smart partnership. I don't know whose idea it was, but I'm really glad this has come forward. My question would be, eventually, I would love to see us get to a point where we have about one trailer per neighborhood. If we do get to that point, do we have enough capacity to handle all of that, or would we have to rethink our strategy?
I think we'd have to rethink. Credit to Shauna Harshman in your office for the idea to partner with COPS. So credit where credit is due. So I will say that. I think right now we have 6 trailers that we use, so we rotate 2 per district throughout. Some districts request more than we're able to give, others do not, so we kind of make up for that difference if it's a little bit short. So I think my actual recommendation, if there is more capacity to add, is actually to give the trailers to the cop shop themselves to be able to deploy locations that they're hearing. The neighborhood council system is great. They love this program, but I think sometimes there are other areas that, they don't come through the neighborhood council system. They come in through the traffic hotline, for example, at SPD. And I think there's a really great opportunity there to work with those cop shops so that they have their own trailers and could deploy. Maybe it doesn't even have to be a 2-week basis. That's something that the neighborhoods really want. I think if we added, give each cop shop its own trailer and they could deploy it for 4 days if they wanted to and just get some of that information and confirm, yep, this does look like there's a problem, share that information with SPD, and maybe SPD could prioritize some enforcement. So to me, that would be a better visioning and a better use of resources. I think each neighborhood having their own, that we would have to really examine that. I think that's a lot to manage right now.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, I don't disagree. Just long term, I think it would be great just to have that ability for each neighborhood. And decide how you can. I think if working with cops to move it would be great. Patrick, is there anything you want to add to the conversation?
No, just that we've had the SPD's mobile trailer that we've used on the South Hill with Cops Southwest. Our volunteers have been moving that. It's gone really well. They enjoy it. A number of other volunteers have asked if they could have one, and so when Carly hit me with this, I thought it was a great idea. It's a good way, as Councilmember Wilkerson said, to keep integrating more, and get the community involved. If people want to see more, road signs, get involved with us, help us move them, and I think it's just a very, very good thing. And since we're already out there knopping anyhow, really the only thing we needed was those trailer hitches on the vehicles, and that's a pretty quick fix. So I love it.
Great. Well, if there's no other questions, and a big thank you to Shauna for the idea and bringing that forward. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we'll jump into our last item here, and we've got it's an SPD fleet discussion with Major McNabb. Major?
I'm back. All right. So hope everybody's excited to talk about police cars. I know I am. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see that? Okay, so I went through this with Councilman Zappone last week, and that was a half hour, and it wasn't enough time to get through all of it. So this is a abbreviated version of that presentation. I will send you the full presentation later today, each and every one of you, so you can take your time with it and look at all the information. So what I have for you today is just an overview of our fleet, how we use our fleet, where the various vehicles are deployed, and touch a little bit about the fleet order that we would very much like to place as soon as possible. So our vehicles are broken down into 4 categories. We have our loaner fleet, which looks humongous right now. I'll explain more about that later. We have our pool vehicles, which also is very large, and I'll explain that. Our rotational vehicles, which is what you've probably heard before, is our hot-seated vehicles. This is vehicles that serves about 100, it serves 117 patrol officers, corporals, and sergeants who work in the patrol division. And then we have 198 single-use vehicles. Here's some just brief notes I want to go over before we get real deep into this data. Is in checking with fleet, the current lead time, depending on what kind of vehicle we order, for the K8s hybrids that we want to order, they're saying 36 weeks. That's not including the time it would take to commission them for the garage. And I don't believe all 64 would arrive at once. I imagine they'd arrive in groups of 5 to 10, and we would work on them from there. So if we ordered them now, it would be something we received in 2023 or late this year, and then we would start rolling them out in 2023, 1, 2, 3 at a time. Of the 64 vehicles identified to be replaced this year, 47 of those are over 80,000 miles, and 29 of which are over 100,000 miles. And 17 additional critical vehicles are between 65 and 80,000 miles, keeping in mind that by the time we got those cars, they would probably be well over 80,000 miles. We had fleet do an analysis on maintenance cost. Anything up to 80,000 miles is costing the city 25 cents per mile. And then after 80,000 miles, it jumps to 32 cents per mile. And it kind of jumps pretty exponentially from there to pretty high cost, upwards of the vehicles that are over 100,000 miles. During my last presentation, there were quite a few questions about our single-use vehicles or our take-home cars. So I wanted to get into that information. So we have a policy about take-home cars. It's basically at the chief's discretion who gets assigned a take-home car. Generally, these are employees who have on-call responsibilities and take their vehicle home off duty. Some of the other deciding factors are if they have special equipment in their vehicles that are not easily taken out or put back in. And also another consideration is we have vehicles that are assigned where somebody works the same shift, where it wouldn't work to put them in a rotational schedule because there's nobody to drive them in the off hours. They're only used for that specific daytime hours, and that would be for like our neighborhood resource officers, downtown precinct, the south precinct. Another thing about take-home cars is a lot of jurisdictions use them as an incentive for recruiting. Spokane County Sheriff's Office has take-home cars, Lakewood PD, Kent PD, Benton County Sheriff's Office, the Everett Police Department all have take-home programs as part of their recruiting. The Tacoma Police Department, which is our normal comparable, 360 officers, all have take-home cars. And one of their main reasons is parking. And so I wanted to bring that up as well. If we were to take all of our single-user vehicles and put them in some type of rotational model, not only would that not be feasible, but where would we park all those cars? Plus all the people's cars that they'd have to drive to work to come get their take-home car. So something to think about there. Here's kind of how the on-call positions break down with take-home cars. Around 60%, 59% of the single-use vehicles have on-call responsibilities, 41% no. What's to know about that is all of our detectives have take-home cars, and that's been the practice for as long as I've worked here. And I believe if we change that now, that would be a change in working conditions and a subject to mandatory bargaining. Let's see here. So 83 vehicles that are not assigned due to on-call positions. 8 includes ones with specific traffic equipment. 29 are for detectives that are not on call. And additionally, 23 officers that are not on call that worked in precincts or other locations. And the way they're deployed, they wouldn't work in a rotational type deployment because they all work the same hours. Here's the annual mileage for take-home vehicles. I've got broken down by units. Admin is looks like around 7,500. Investigations around the same. Patrol is higher because obviously they drive their vehicles more during the day during their shifts. The average patrol officer assigned to a rotational vehicle, a hot-seated vehicle, is putting on around 6,800 miles per year. Single-user vehicles are averaging around an additional 2,200 more miles per year or 180 miles per month. So Another question we had during the last presentation was how many people live long ways away or outside the state with take-home vehicles. It's about 5%, or 10 officers have individually assigned vehicles that live outside the Spokane County. Our current policy says that they have to be within 30 miles of the city limits, one direction. And like I said earlier, all the detectives have been having take-home cars assigned to them as a matter of practice, as well as senior staff, lieutenants and above. That practice has been going on for a very long time. And this is the single-use vehicles without on-call responsibilities broken down by unit. The admin, 6, they're just 1s and 2s. Domestic violence unit 3, investigations 14, downtown precinct 15, service area north 5, SIU, which is the undercover division 15, and the traffic unit 8. So here's our pool vehicles. We have a lot of pool vehicles, I believe. I don't remember what it was on the second slide. It was 94 pool vehicles. So pool vehicles have a specific purpose, and they're not assigned to a single group, and they're not used every day. So that, for example, the Academy has 25 vehicles. Some of those are training vehicles that they use for emergency driving training. Some of them are old junker used cars, maybe they handed down from special investigations after they were done with them to be used for mock traffic stops or things that they use during the Academy. We have the administrative pool vehicles, which include passenger cars, vans, trailers, and vehicles operated by fleet services to shuffle cars back and forth. We have a patrol pool, which consists of our motorcycles, a couple undercover vehicles, our co-op and senior volunteer vehicles, our reserve officer vehicles. Like property has a forklift. They have a vehicle, a large vehicle to transport property to and from the crime lab. And then the SWAT and TAC, our specialty teams, they have large trucks, the Bearcats, trailers for equipment. And then our traffic unit has a couple of motorcycles they use for training as well as a trailer. So that's why we have a pool vehicle. Our loaner vehicles right now is ginormous. It's 74. We did a study with Fleet and to look at the highest time that we had the most amount of vehicles out of service for any reason. And that's why we would need a loaner fleet. The vehicle's out for service. It's out because it's broken. It's out because it's having body shop repairs. And at its highest point was around 14%. And when we took a look at our critical vehicle fleet, which is around 316 vehicles, so we're operational, 14% of those vehicles we would normally need around 22 vehicles without a cage and 24 vehicles with a cage being the prisoner partition. And all the reason why we like to have extra spare vehicles in our loaner fleet is to prepare for large events like Hoop Fest or Lilac Parade. And then these vehicles aren't vehicles that we are putting in the rotational replacement schedule. These vehicles are the vehicles that should be replaced or are getting ready to be replaced or have been replaced. They're the highest miles, least reliable vehicles in the fleet. And it's kind of the natural progression that the new vehicles go into the rotational fleet on patrol first, then they get handed down to a single user vehicle, and then after that progression occurs, then they go into the loaner fleet, and then once enough vehicles are in the loaner fleet, then those get sold off for auction. So we're in the process of decommissioning an additional 17 vehicles right now. If we purchase the 64 vehicles, when we purchase the 64 vehicles, because I know you're going to let me, we would get rid of an additional 17 vehicles on top of that. So it would take our fleet well under the 400 mark. So this is kind of how the loaner vehicles are broken down. Most of them are really old Crown Victorias that are on their last leg, and a couple of them are SIU undercover cars, and just a few of the newer K8 type vehicles, probably the ones we first bought. So I wanted to blow through that real quick because I know you're going to have a lot of questions, and I'm going to stop sharing this so we can get into those.
Okay, questions. Councilwoman Kinnear.
I have so many. Thanks, Major McNabb. So Jacoby and I were doing the arithmetic here, and so 203 cars are going out, and when you think about if the maximum is 30 miles one way, that's 60 miles two ways, times 5, we're looking at probably shortening the life of a car by a year with the take-home aspect. And you mentioned that we wouldn't have a place to park, but if we took that money, we could actually pay for parking, and it would be less money than having people take home vehicles. We may want to shorten that amount. Maybe 30 miles is too long, and maybe it's, the outside the city limits or some other metric that is not going to really rack up the miles on those cars. And then the other thing was you mentioned wanting to buy hybrids, and I of all people understand those Teslas aren't going to work for you. I sat in them, and I had one of your officers sit in them and was trying to figure out how he would buckle his seatbelt because he could not move his arms. So that was a little bit of a challenge. And then if he could manage to buckle his seatbelt and had to get out of the car quickly, he would not be able to unbuckle it and move out. So he would essentially be a prisoner in his own car. So I get that part, but I think we're just jumping right to we need hybrids, and there needs to be an exploration of another car that, especially in the wake of gas prices just zooming with no end in sight, there needs to be exploration of what else could we use that is going to be electric that would work for you all. And I don't know that we've explored that, and that is an opportunity for us to do so. I'd hate to see us stuck with 64 hybrids when right around the corner there's another option for us to buy something that wouldn't be, sucking up gas. So those are some of my questions, and I'm guessing Councilmember Wilkerson's going to jump on here too.
All right. Well, I'll touch on the distance first. So that's as you saw, is 5% of the people live far away. Most people live close by, and I think the norm is that it's not that big of a drain and added on mileage. Another advantage to take-home cars is they take better care of the car when it's a take-home car. It lasts longer. And I think that is proven over time because we are driving these cars way past their replacement dates, and they're still kicking for some reason, because these officers know that they're not going to get another car, don't think they're going to get another car to replace it, so they want it to last. As far as parking, I would invite you to kind of think about the logistics of all that and how that would work, where they would park, how they would get to their, where would they park their car, how would they change their clothes to get into their police stuff, and how that would all work, and where's this parking gonna be at. And I'm not saying that that's a barrier, I'm just saying that's logistically how to walk through all that is something to think about. As far as the electric vehicles, I think Ford is gonna have their Explorer Police Interceptor ready in 2024. And I know, based on what we learned from these Teslas, if we try to buy any more, especially on a big scale, a bunch of electric vehicles that we have no experience with, we are going to end up in the same boat we are with these Teslas, or unless we're very lucky, because we're finding things wrong with these Teslas that we could not possibly anticipate it until we got into them and started driving them. Stuff like we can't turn the lights off and sneak up on a house at night when there's an armed confrontation and we don't want to be detected. Or when we're walking away from the car in the same scenario and we can't program it so the horn doesn't beep when it locks. These are things that can't be changed. We've gone to the Tesla factory and they've said, you guys should have looked into this before you bought the car, because these were designed for dentists to drive back and forth to work. They're not designed for police work. And that's a direct quote from the Tesla Service Center in Spokane. And what's to say if we buy a Mach-E or a Lightning or whatever else is available out there, we're not going to run into the exact same problem, because this is a huge unknown. We don't know what to expect from these cars. And I am very apprehensive about buying something like that, especially that big of an order, and being stuck with these cars and them not being able to work. I think we should buy the hybrids this year. This is a one-year order, and see what happens next year. And if an electric car is available next year, let's buy it then. But and I think there's no problem with us testing a Lightning or testing a Mach-E, but we need time to test it. We're just now finding out that we can't use these Teslas on patrol because of safety issues, because we can't get the doors and locks to work right, and we're going to have to take them out of patrol and put them in volunteer services or something. I just don't want to go down this type of experimentation road when we desperately need cars.
And I get that, if I may, Councilmember Cathcart. I understand that. I completely understand that. I also know that Fleet can't program or commission 64 cars in a year, so maybe we look at that number that's more realistic of how many can Fleet actually do in a year and buy those cars, and then in a year time look again. And there may be an opportunity to approach a car dealership and say, hey, how about loaning us a car so we can try it out and see if it will work for PD. I'm kind of brainstorming here.
Yeah.
But I would encourage you to think about how many cars we could actually commission in a year versus how many we should buy and tie up money.
Yeah, we looked at that, and Fleet said they could do 30-some, and they also have an outside vendor that could make up the difference to do 64 in a year. So it is doable.
Hey, Major, I'm going to go to Councilman Bingle in a second, but my understanding is that State Patrol has a pretty good take-home program, and it also, part of that includes kind of some accountability measures where the officers are the ones in charge of making sure that the vehicle is maintained and on time and, taken care of, and it's all on them to make sure that it's done in a timely manner. And it just, from the officers I've talked to who've been through that, they've said that it worked pretty well. So I'd be curious your feedback on that. And then with regards to the electric vehicles, there's a pretty substantial gap in time, right, before we can even take receipt of these vehicles. So if we buy a couple more experimental electric vehicles in lieu of ordering, our order of vehicles, wouldn't that really delay by potentially a year or two getting vehicles online? If we did it along with a big order of hybrids, we could perhaps, move forward. But if it was in lieu of for now, I feel like it would just delay things pretty substantially.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I have no problem testing another civilian model vehicle to see if it would work. Maybe it would work for our detectives. Maybe it would work for some other admin spot. There's a lot of concerns with how to charge them, where to charge them, whether they should be charged at home, all these things we need to figure out. But if we keep kicking this can down the road of ordering our big order that we need to place this year, which is just one installment of a 10-year plan, we're going to be delaying this order another 2 years, just like you said, and we're going to find ourselves in a position where we're going to make our police department less efficient, because we're going to have to make some operational changes because these vehicles are going to wear out.
Councilman Bingle, and then Council President.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all the comments here. I think these are all really good questions, and I think many of us understand that electric vehicles are the future, and even solar is the future of energy. I think the argument that's being made now is that we're just not there yet. And currently the proposal is, what do we do now? What's the best thing for the community now? And it seems to be that the best thing that we can do for the community now is to purchase these K8 hybrid vehicles until the technology becomes available, until Ford has the ability to do these things, until. And we're going to have, every year we're going to be talking about these things, and I'm sure the time will come where we have the ability to purchase all electric vehicles, and they're going to be fantastic for police work. I would just encourage everybody to remember that the day that we live in is today, and the decisions that we're making are the best that are for us today to keep our community safe.
Council President?
Yeah, just one point. Last week we heard from Fleet that Ford F-150 Lightnings are available for purchase now. So they're available now, and we could get an experiment on that one. And my frustration is whatever new vehicles come out, we're going to have to test them and experiment on them. And just quick Google, there seems to be 10 to 12 all-electric SUVs right now, much bigger than the Teslas that Fleet thought would be a good substitute a couple years ago. You know, it's changed. So my frustration is that we are not robustly exploring. If we were robustly exploring everything and then we came up to, nope, there really is nothing else, then I'd be fine with it. Our other fleet purchases that are subject to the same laws, when there's not a reasonable substitute, we say, fine, don't do it. The law we're required is to fully explore and find out. So that's my frustration, that we're not spending the time on it. I think that Tesla, it turns out, was not a good patrol vehicle. We heard from Fleet at the time they thought it was, and they recommended that. City Council didn't recommend the Tesla. That wasn't our idea. That was just what we were told was the best option. So I just want to see more robust exploration of all the units, because if we get them now, remember, the reason that we're doing this is to save money. Electric vehicles last twice as long, so you're getting two vehicles essentially for the price of one, and they're way cheaper over the life of even just one life of a vehicle to operate. So it saves us money. We have more money to buy more vehicles, more equipment, better support law enforcement. So I just would like to see a little more proactivity on it as opposed to all the reasons why not. So that's just my soapbox speech, and I'll step down now.
Council Member Zappone.
Yeah, thank you. So thanks for the presentation again. Couple of follow-up questions that I still wasn't there for and don't know yet. Why wasn't the Mach-E chosen? I know New York just ordered 200 of them, so I'm just curious, like, why that wasn't chosen here.
So when we ordered the Teslas, the Mach-E wasn't out yet. That's how long. It was a long time ago when we went through this Tesla discussion, and the car sat for almost a year before we could get parts available for it to make it a police car. So from this discussion, though, the Mach-E, from my understanding, New York's order is not for police, but for administrative vehicles in the city. And the Michigan State Patrol, the one that tests vehicles on an annual basis and gives them what they call the pursuit rated vehicle, they were donated a Mach-E by Ford, and they took it 5 laps around the track, and there it sits. They're not doing anything else with it. We talked to them on the phone. They haven't commissioned it. They haven't put in any equipment in it. We didn't learn anything other than it can go around the racetrack really fast. And that's not what's important to us. What's important to us is knowing, you know, can it last for 2 consecutive shifts? Can we get all the police equipment in it? Can we get a police officer in it comfortably without their back hurting? All those things. And we don't know that until we get our hands on the car and test it. And that takes a long time. It takes a year, to do it. So, and that's, we just don't have that.
Yeah, it's my second follow-up. But from the research that I saw, the Mach-E was tested and passed the test from Michigan. That's what the Detroit Express said, so I'm not sure. But my real follow-up question was about, I asked you, like, what would the 64 vehicles be replacing? Are they all going to patrol? Like, what is the actual purchase? Because if some of them are going to administrative cars, like, what are we actually trying to replace here?
So I sent you that list, Councilman, and I sent it to Matt Boston as well. I sent you an updated list to Matt this morning. Most of it is going towards replacing patrol use vehicles. It may not be the rotational fleet, all of them. It's not all the rotational fleet, but all of our neighborhood resource officers, our downtown precinct officers, they're driving extremely old cars that need to be replaced. These are replacing all those cars. And I'll send you all that spreadsheet today, and you can look through. It says where they're assigned and who they're assigned to. And just one more thing on the Michigan State Patrol thing. It did pass their track test, but that measures things like how fast it goes around the track, the brake fade ability. It doesn't measure any of the things that really matter to us, which is can an officer with all of his equipment on or her equipment on sit in the car comfortably for 10 hours. They didn't test that. They didn't test if there is equipment available to put into the car to commission it for police work. Those are all the things that we're learning now that is more difficult. We don't really care how fast it goes around the track.
Councilmember Bingle and then Wilkerson.
Thank you. Major McNabb, I have a couple questions for you because I guess one of the frustrations here is that there wasn't a really robust exploration to electric vehicles. Would you say that you and the police department have done a robust exploration of electric vehicles for police use?
I'd say we've done a very good job with the Teslas as far as getting them commissioned and pushing through, making our best effort to see if those work. That was that was an honest effort. But as far as exploring the technology, it's a moving target. I mean, there's vehicles coming out daily, all kinds of stuff, and I think that there's going to be some vehicles that might be usable in a couple years, but we're not there yet. Yeah.
From my viewpoint, it does seem as if there was an honest and robust effort to explore those vehicles, because every question that was brought up, it seemed as if you knew exactly what they were talking about off the top of your head without having to reference anything. And so from my aspect, it seems pretty impressive, the exploration that was done on your future part. And I am kind of interested why, we have much more pushback on police vehicles when we're talking about what the police are approaching us with and what they need to do their job effectively to keep the community safe. When we had one meeting about spending $2.5 million on pumper trucks for the fire department, and we didn't question their decision. They just told us what they needed, and we approved it. I'm a little curious as to why we're pushing back so much on police vehicles.
I see Chief Meidel has his hand up as well. I don't know if it's pertinent to this discussion.
It is, yeah, thank you. Just to give a synopsis as well is none of us at SPD are opposed to electric vehicles. I need to be very clear about that. We are not opposed to them, but right now where the technology is and the development is on police electric vehicles is like trying to put a square peg into a round hole. So you heard Major McNabb talk about the Tesla. At the time we purchased that vehicle, when you look at front area for the officer, back area for transporting, that's a consideration as well. I've seen a lot of SUVs that aren't much bigger than compact cars. And in fact, I'll drive down the streets and I'll look at someone like, that's an SUV. So it's not just for the officer, it's also the back area where we obviously put people that we transport. So when you looked at the Tesla as well, it took well over 6 months, and Mike, you probably know the exact amount of time from when we ordered that vehicle until they were able to fabricate from scratch the pieces we need for the electric vehicle. And that's going to be the truth with no matter what electric vehicle we get as well. There's going to be shields, there's going to be seats for the back, there's going to have to be reconfiguring seats, the bars for the windows, the glass top on the Tesla, all of these things that civilian vehicles are not designed for. Some of the officer safety things. So we have to test every vehicle. If we order the vehicle, we get it within, even if we got it within 4 months, by the time we got components for that vehicle, it's not going to be used until next year for those components to be made, to be placed in the vehicle, for the vehicle to be tested. And then once we test it, that's when we find out all of these other different things. The headlights shut off after 10 minutes. So if you're on a traffic stop in the middle of the night, all of a sudden your lights shut off. You heard Major McNabb talk about the horn makes a beeping sound as you're trying to silently to deploy to all of these various calls. The extra battery we have to put in there. So right now we're trying to force civilian vehicles to meet law enforcement needs, not because we don't want electric vehicles, but because we're just not quite there yet. My understanding is Ford is working on a similar version of a K8. They know there's a market for patrol vehicles that are out there. The Mustang is out there as well. We tried the sedans for our officers, and we had a lot of claims, a lot of back injuries. So there's a lot of variables here, but if we stop getting vehicles that we need so that we can test other vehicles as opposed to doing both concurrently, we will at some point run out of police cars, and we will have officers that are going to be doubled up, probably not this year, but it's feasible in 2023. We're going to have officers doubled up because we just don't have enough cars. But I feel like there's a sense that we don't want these electric vehicles, and I assure you that is absolutely not the truth at all. We just want to make sure that we're getting vehicles that meet our needs.
I know Council woke up, but I just really quickly, Administrator Perkins, your hand popped up, and if it's relevant to this, just wanted to jump over to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cathcart. I appreciate that. One of the things that we had asked for, I know we're meeting with you, Council President Beggs, as well as Councilmember Kinnear in a few weeks. We want to come out with a plan and proposals relates to the replacement of the police vehicles. I will say, Fleet is finishing up a study, and right now it's indicating that there are issues, and including the Ford F-150 in terms of interior room, charging capability. So there's still a lot of questions on multiple EV vehicles that are on the market or preparing to go on the market. So it's not just the Tesla that has issues. There are other concerns with all the other EV vehicles and the interior room and studies that others have done, and our fleet department is finishing one now. So that's part of the reason we had requested a meeting in a few weeks to kind of walk through that, as well as some thoughts as to how we can move forward with the police department's replacement vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Wilkerson.
Thank you. So, Major McNabb, with all the technology changing in cars, is the industry standard going to change for 100,000 miles for the best use of a police car? That's one question as we go forward. And I do want to respond to Councilmember Bingles. I think, at least for me, asking the questions to find out, because this is a new area, and this police cars have been before us, and how it kind of got out of sync with so many need to be ordered. It's not that, at least I'm not supportive. I just need to really understand, and I think the citizens need to understand that it's not a pushback against what they need or electric or whatever, but it is our job to ask the questions and get the best answers we can to make the best decision. So is 100,000 miles, is that number going to move, or will it stay the standard in your opinion?
Well, we have a couple different replacement schedules. The rotational vehicles that we use on patrol, we actually do an 80,000 miles. Those cars are worked very hard. They run almost 24/7. They probably get more abuse than a rental car, I would say. Just wear and tear. That's a hard life for a vehicle. So those are 80,000. The 100,000 is more for the neighborhood resource officers or the detective cars. And then I think admin is 115,000, something like that. I'd have to go back and look. But I would hope that as we get to the electric vehicles, that is what they're saying about electric vehicles is true, that we will get a whole lot more life out of these cars when they're available for us. But as far as the hybrid vehicles, I don't know. Maybe Rick Giddings would be able to tell us what the projected life is on those. But I'll tell you, we're very happy with the hybrid vehicles, the 14 of them that we have right now.
Councilman Dingle.
I would just, to respond to Councilwoman Wilkerson, I fully agree with what you said. It's absolutely important that we ask and we know these things, and I don't oppose the questions at all. For me, I guess I was just frustrated with the assumption that the police hadn't done a robust, or that they had done a dishonest exploration into this field. I think that was where I was coming from. So hopefully I don't say that I'm discouraging questions in any way. I do appreciate the inquiry and the search for truth here. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, I am not seeing any other hands raised, and we don't have any other items on our agenda. Is there anything for this topic that we want to end with? Administrator Perkins, I see your hand just popped up.
Yes, sir, Councilmember Cathcart. Just one last thing. I wanted to make it clear that the mayor is also, as Chief Meidel mentioned, very supportive of the electric vehicle program, and in no way by this discussion is diminishing the importance of that issue and the importance of pursuing electric vehicles going forward. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for this topic? Not seeing anything. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, well, why don't we adjourn our meeting, and it looks like our next Public Safety Committee meeting is April 4th, so we'll see everybody then. Have a good day, everybody.